So, hey, Joe, what's going on, man? I'm happy to have you here.
Dude, thanks for inviting me on, or I guess I forced to invite myself.
Yeah. So I was watching Joe's stream the other day, and I'll tell the story in a second. But Joe, why don't you tell people where they can find your stuff?
Yeah, you can the easiest way is probably joeafterwork.com. That's gonna have my Twitch, my YouTube, my I think my Twitter's on there and all that stuff. That's sort of the hub world for everything that I do on both channels. But if you just search up Joe After Work, J-O, not J-O-E, uh, there I am. It'll be pretty easy to find me.
Awesome. So I was watching Joe's Twitch stream. He was playing some of the games that were announced on the Nintendo Nindies Direct, which I hate saying that word, but I'll do it for Nintendo, I guess. And I don't know. I said something and he misunderstood exactly what I meant. And he was like, "Yeah, I'll come on the show." And I was like, "Oh, I hadn't thought about that. That's a great idea." And then he felt a little, he acted like he felt a little embarrassed, but I thought it was hilarious. So I sent him a message on Twitch and I was like, "Dude, you got to come on. We can talk about stuff. We can talk about Nintendo." And so here we are. We're here to talk a little bit about Nintendo. And I want to start out with Joe actually came up with the topic for today, which I thought was a very good topic. And it was, are the Nindy showcases helping or harming Nintendo and indie devs in 2018 post E3? So what are your thoughts on this, Joe? Because that's a really, really interesting question.
Yeah, it's something that I thought of as I was watching the event because I noticed a common occurrence with these Nindy showcases that Nintendo likes to do. They like to showcase, games that are coming out immediately or fairly soon, which I'm all about. I think that's probably the best way to present indie games on the console. But then they have a lot of these games that go way out into, the ether of, like, next year. They give these seasonal dates, which I always take with a grain of salt. I like seeing the concrete date if a game is actually gonna come out on that date. We've seen things in the past that have still not come out yet to the Switch or just in general, and it's had me start wondering, like, "Okay, is this harmful to is this actually harming them in the long run where people are waiting for the games and then they just kind of forget about them for a while and then it kind of pops up? Are they still selling like hotcakes like every other indie game that's sort of, well, not now, but like during the early rush of 2019 where, Switch was still growing its library of games and whatnot?"
Hmm.
And so that's sort of where I stand. I'm still torn as to whether or not, and I guess I would have to go back and, like, really break down things analytically to, like, see, like, the sales of, like, games that show up on these showcases and versus games that, were shown and then finally released. Like, Lightfall came to mind when, that was announced in January, and it came out, mid-spring. I wanna say, like, April, May, or something like that, and I had completely forgotten that that game was coming out. Like, I remembered about a month before, and then it just kinda came out of nowhere. I was like, "Oh, yeah, that game." And I
Right,
was
right.
really excited about it at the time. And so that's just one example that comes to mind for me when I think about these showcases and whether or not it's harming them. The other side of it is I have noticed the last 2 days, my Twitter feed has been very weird where people are, people are starting to react negatively to these Nindy showcases. And there are some definitely constructive good points in there, but there's also a lot of like, okay, I'm done with these indie games. Like, show me like actual first party games and AAA titles from other third party devs. Like, enough of the indies, enough of the pixel art stuff. And I can see where they're coming from with that too, as well, because we're in a year where Nintendo has dropped half of 2016 Wii U ports. And granted, there are games that, even myself included, part of them I haven't played, so I picked them up. And a lot of that fan base that's jumped in on the Switch and didn't get the Wii U are like, they're buying these games. But for people that have stuck it through and through with Nintendo, including Wii U era, they're starting to feel kind of burned. And that's the other side that I can understand, where it's like, okay, you've played these games already. I get it, but from a business aspect, it's helping other people. But is Nintendo trying to alleviate that lack of first party support, so to speak, with these indie titles and showing them love and trying to, gain trust in that sense? Like, there's just so many different aspects that I'm kind of torn on right now.
Yeah, you unpacked a lot of stuff right there.
Yeah.
There's like 3 or 4 different ways that I think this discussion could go, and I think one way to look at it is comparing 2017 to 2018. Like Nintendo in 2017, it was just hit after hit after hit. It was probably the best first party lineup of any system ever. And it was incredible. And then you follow that up with 2018, where they're like, okay, we kind of dropped everything that we have. And so now we're in a waiting mode. We need to focus on third party stuff. And I think that was Nintendo's strategy. Their strategy was, okay, we're going to dump all of the work that's kind of been backlogged because the Wii U wasn't shipping anything. We're going to dump all that in the first year. The first year and the first half of the second year. And then after that, we're going to, if we do everything right, then the Switch is going to sell really, really well. And if it sells really well, then the third parties will come. And if the third parties are come, we can rely on them for the second half of the second year. And I think for the most part, that's been pretty successful. However, this idea of the Nindies showcases, people getting a little burnt out on the independent games. Well, I think that's kind of systemic of a couple of different things. Number one, I could be wrong about this, Joe, but wasn't there another Nindies direct? I almost said direct. Nindies showcase like a week and a half ago.
Yes, from Gamescom. Yeah.
Right? I mean, space that stuff out better. There's no reason to have these things back to back to back. And I mean, we've got another direct for this. No, what's the name of the Dissidia?
Disgaea Dragon
Lost or something. I can't remember the name of it. It's not really important, but there's another direct for a mobile game coming. So it's like everybody's wondering what's going on with Nintendo Online. Everybody's wondering that, and Nintendo's like, we've got an announcement about independent games, and they're like, okay, well, maybe the next one, we've got another announcement about independent games, and you're like, all right, now we've got another announcement about mobile, and you're like, come on, will you just tell us what we want to know? What are your first party plans for the end of the year? And another thing that it made me think of when you were saying your point earlier is Wargroove. Wargroove got announced like super early, and this is something I am constantly complaining about developers for doing, is they show off something really early, and then we're all like, okay, when? And they're like, well, whenever. Oh, okay, well, have a plan ahead of time, I think. And I almost think that it's like Nintendo goes to this developer, and I have no insider knowledge of this, but maybe Nintendo went to the developer and said, hey, we're doing this thing. Would you like to be featured in a video by us? And any developer is going to go, of course, no matter how ready they are, they're going to be, yes, we want to be featured, because that's big for them. And so, Wargroove or Chucklefish gets all their stuff together for Wargroove, and they submit their video to Nintendo, and Nintendo uses it, and then Chucklefish is like, well, we still got a lot of work to do. And I'm not saying Chucklefish should rush to get Wargroove out the door, but you hit upon a really interesting point. If Nintendo hadn't done that and hadn't shown us the video of Wargroove and then being radio silence, is that going to hurt Wargroove in terms of sales? Because the hype train has left the station when the game finally does come out? Yeah, I don't know. That's a really interesting question. So I'm very curious as to what's going to happen there. Are there any other games that you're thinking of that you feel like you were really hyped for, and now you're almost like, I don't know if I really care anymore. Something else has taken its place.
Wargroove was probably the biggest one. There's some games that have already come out since. Like there's ones that I recall vaguely. Like I think this was in the direct and it's popped out, but like it didn't you like it's not like Nintendo's not shouting out, tweeting out, saying, "Hey, this game is out finally," and like supporting. They're sort of like you said. It almost sounds like they're just grabbing a bunch of people, presenting it to this direct, and they're not going to say no. I mean, it's free publicity right there. Well, I would hope free publicity right there for their game on Nintendo Switch, and then it kind of just fades out. One game I will say, not necessarily lost my hype for because I have a very soft spot for them and I actually I follow everything they do is Inti Creates, and they have consistently been putting out games other than this one particular one that finally got a release date in this past Nindy showcase, Mark for Death. It was originally supposed to come out December of last year, and then they kind of went radio silent, but then they were demoing it at all these conventions and stuff like that. And it wasn't until yesterday that we received an actual official date of December of this year. So December 13th that's coming out. It's just like it kind of seems like, okay, should we be bothering these that should people be taking it back a step, sort of like relating it to, and this might be a poor example of it, but how certain years of E3 presentations where, you have Sony or Microsoft showing
Square
off a
Enix.
game. Yeah, yeah, Square Enix showing off games that are years away. I mean, who knows if they started off, maybe they just made these trailers um off a quick, dev like early dev build, and they're just starting this game but wanted to showcase, hey, here's our game, can you put this in the showcase or whatever. And then we might never see it.
Like Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Yes,
Like
yes.
two years in a row, they showed off Final Fantasy VII Remake, and then we haven't heard anything, and it's been what, 2 more years since then.
I
So
think
it's been
so,
a
yeah.
long time, and we still haven't. We still don't have Final Fantasy VII Remake in our hands. Yeah, that's a very interesting point. Um, let's talk for a little bit about a dev that did not get featured in Nintendo Direct, and this is, oh gosh, I can't remember, the Zeboyd Games, I believe, is the
Yes.
developer, and they
Cosmic Star
made, what's that?
Cosmic Star Heroine.
Yes, Cosmic Star Heroine. They were recently talking to somebody over at Nintendo Life, and no, they this was in a Resetera post, and Nintendo Life found it. I'm going to read this real quick so that the people listening can hear this too. They said, we got an okay number of reviews, but yeah, we couldn't get Nintendo to mention the game anywhere, which is a real shame since even a retweet from Nintendo probably would have given us a big boost in visibility. I get it that it was just a port, but after spending months getting stonewalled by Nintendo when we were trying to get permission to release on the Switch, going, fine, we'll play by your rules, and getting a publisher so we could get approved, and still getting ignored by Nintendo when the game was done to set release is highly frustrating. So, like, this is a game. Well, first off, I've played this on PS4. I reviewed it for Rogue's Portal, which is a website forever ago, and
Nice.
like, it's really good. Have you ever played Cosmic Star Heroine?
Yes, I am in the middle of playing through that game. I'm on chapter 3 currently
What
on the
system are you playing it
Switch.
on? On the
I
Switch,
have it
okay.
on Switch. I do have it on PS4 and Vita as well, but I didn't fully get into it there. Like Switches seem to just it's the I like to play these games on the go, and it's the perfect thing for me. I was a big, I've always been a big handheld dude, so being able to just take anything on the go with me, I'm like a sucker for buying it on my Switch right now.
Well, let's take a second before we get into what they're saying and talk about what the game is real quick.
Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead and describe it?
Yeah, so I've done a poor describing of this game before, but it's turn-based strategy RPG, or just turn-based RPG at its core mechanics. But the unique part of it is where you actually have to there's all your special skills that you obtain as you're leveling up. You only get to use them once. There are certain support skills that allow you to repeat moves with certain characters that you get in your party. I don't know if there's more than four. I just got the fourth guy not too long a couple nights ago.
Hmm.
um, but the crux of the story itself is you're going across these planets, and there seems to be some plot within the agency that you're working for that's actually covered up as like some like robot company. Like, is it like a robot cleaning company or something like
It's
that?
really nebulous almost. I don't want
Yeah.
to say too much about the story because I don't want to give anything away, but um, it like if you had to compare it to a traditional RPG, which traditional RPG would you pick?
For me, I see it, and again, this is probably the poorest of examples from my end because I need to go and actually play this game, but it looks a lot like Chrono Trigger to
That's
me.
exactly what I was going to
Yeah,
say. Yeah, it
yeah.
feels a lot like Chrono Trigger too. It's really fun, and here's the thing: I didn't even know I'm a Nintendo podcaster. It is my job. Well, not my job. I do this for fun, but it is my job in big air quotes for me to know about this stuff. And I had no idea this game had come to the Switch or that it was out. I think I knew that it was coming to the Switch, but I didn't know that it had actually dropped until I saw this story where the devs, Zboyd Games, were complaining that Nintendo isn't giving them any support, which is ridiculous because Zboyd Games makes fantastic games. They made the Penny Arcade games, which we will never get to play on the Switch, I'm sure, because of the licensing issues. But they also made this one called Breath of Death 5 and Call of Cthulhu. All really cool traditional RPG games with a really cool twist on them. And I had no idea this game was on the Switch already. And that is a shame, especially because we just watched this Nindies whatever, Nindies showcase, and they're talking about all these games that aren't coming out until 2019, and there's no mention at all of Cosmic Star Heroine. I think that's
Yeah.
a ridiculous thing.
It's a little upsetting too because it's not the first time that I've heard this something like this happen where, you know, indie devs are trying to get their game on platforms and they're having a hard time in terms of like marketing purposes. And you only have so much in the budget to push a game forward, or a game that people are really excited for and it just doesn't, or it has like a cult following, and it doesn't get seen by the light of day of Nintendo. Or another thing is it just shows up randomly on the channel section, which I think we can get into a
Yes, that's
little
a good
bit.
idea too.
um but yeah, like a Tui is the example. Sorry, I forgot where I was going with that, but a Tui is a perfect example where games like Chicken Wiggle, Mutant Mud's Collection. I'm gonna bounce between 3DS and Switch right now for this example, but both those games launch. Chicken Wiggle last year, Mutant Mud's Collection this year, Zeo Drifter. Like, those games got Switch remasters for all intents and purposes, and not a thing from Nintendo about it. And he launched it around the time where there were no other indie games releasing.
Hmm.
It was close to Christmas time, and there were a few games coming out. I think Enter the Gungeon came out the week before, and then his game came out like a week or two afterwards. The Mutant Muds collection, and nothing. Like, there was nothing there. I was like, "Hey, dude, I see it on the news channel." Just because happenstance, I turned on my Switch. You know how it has like that channel feed right onto the side before you
Yeah.
unlock it. I saw it there for a second, but it's like no, I don't know who uses that channel section all that well.
I
I go into it from time to time, but I personally like it's such a flooded mess because it auto follows for every game you put in, and that's personally the most annoying thing on the planet for me.
oh my god. Well, do you have a Japanese eShop account?
I do.
Do you have a Euro eShop account?
I do.
Yeah, and like I wish I could just say I only want to see stuff in English, for crying out loud, because I have these accounts so that I can, because sometimes a developer will want to send me a review copy, but I don't know how it goes with Nintendo. They run out of codes fast for review copies, really really fast. And a
They do.
developer will send me they'll be like, okay, I want to send you a review copy, but we're all out of North American codes. Will you take another code? And I'll be like, sure, of course, because it's a region free system. Thank you. Um, and so I have a Japanese account, Europe account, a New Zealand account, and a U.S. account. And so and the New Zealand one is just because that was a code, that was the only codes that they had left, because Nintendo is very very restrictive with the number of codes that they give out. Um, and so
It's
whenever I
crazy.
open up that channel thing that you were talking about, I don't know what to call it, the news thing, I guess,
Yeah.
it's flooded with stuff that I can't read because it's not in English. And that's a problem. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm complaining about getting free games or something like that, but um
How
uh
dare you?
yeah, I know. But it's annoying, and it makes that channel, or the news thing, completely useless. And I know that my problem is exaggerated on top of everyone else's problem, where it auto follows all of these games, and you're just like, I don't care about this. I only care about that, and it's a kind of a clunky interface too.
That like I have no problem with like the general UI main page. The eShop I do there's definitely areas of opportunity there, so to speak.
Hmm.
And that news channel, I don't know if the thing is with the news channel, I just don't have a solution to provide. So I rarely make qualms about it other than if there's a way to just set in the settings, I don't want auto following, that would be amazing. 'Cause
Yeah,
I right now, I've been going through and just trying to manually get through everything, like, there's digital games that I have, and there's a bunch of physical games that I have, and having to go through every time, that's, like, one more chore, like, "Oh," because they're not gonna update those channels half the time either. The game comes out, and rarely do I ever see anything from the companies that update the new channels. I don't even know if they know that they can update through there.
yeah, I
I
don't
think,
know.
Death Squared
That's
was
a great game.
the only company I know that's updated their channel,
I've
like,
just
when it
completely
first
given
came
up
out.
on even looking at the news channel, because it's too much of a mess.
Yeah,
It's easier for me to just go on the internet and be like, Google
yeah,
Nintendo News, and see what kind of stuff I can find. It's
boom,
just too much work to
yeah,
do it on the Switch itself. But you know,
I
uh,
agree.
it's not a huge deal, because I guess I can just ignore it, which is what I've decided to do. Like,
Yeah.
when we were watching the Nindies showcase, and they were like, and by the way, here's a brand new Indies channel, I was like, oh wait, no, I don't care. I don't care about that, which is too bad.
It does have me intrigued. I don't think I'm following it at this moment, but you just reminded me I'm gonna give that one a shot and see if they actually follow through with proper updates. I'm curious enough to see, like, because I want that thing to succeed. I think there's some really neat stuff that you can do within the news tab. Um, Especially marketing wise, like, I feel like that's another way in if it's used
Oh
smartly,
yeah.
and the reason I brought up Death Squared was because they did it smart. They had people like Kinda Funny, they had a bunch of different reaction videos to people playing this game on their channel, and it would pop up in the news feed from their Death Squared channel, and I was like, "That's awesome."
That is
That
awesome.
if companies could utilize that way, that could be their way to market a game right on the console in front of your face.
That's something like the Wii U did that really well. You'd walk into the room, and the little blue light would be on the tablet part, and
Hmm.
you'd pick it up, and it'd be like, "This game just released," and I was like, "Oh, that's really cool. I like that." The Indies channel might actually solve the second half of what Zboyd Games was talking about here. So I've got another quote here. They said it's a good game, and I dare say a good percent of the million plus people who bought Octopath Traveler would like our game if they knew it existed. I totally agree.
Yes.
Then they said we couldn't even get somebody to fix our store page before launch, which never indicated that the game had a pre-order early purchase sale, and until just recently didn't even have our trailer on it. And the page went
Wow.
up about a month before launch, so there was plenty of time.
I pre-purchased that game.
That's ridiculous. Well, hey, you got
That's
the sale
absurd.
even if you didn't know it.
Yeah. No, I knew. I was like, oh, I think it was like 10% or something like that.
That's
Sorry, I think you
awesome.
just said that. Yeah. Um, I was like, yes, I am doing this. Boom.
Yeah, I haven't decided if I'm going to buy it again because I don't know, but well, buy it again. I got it for free on my PS4. I guess I should throw some money at them for because I like Cosmic Star Heroine. All right,
It's
let's
a fun
talk about.
game.
Oh, go ahead.
No, it's a fun game. Yeah. They just had a limited run also for PS4 and Vita.
Are you big into collecting physical games?
Not until the Gamers Club Unlocked happened to me. So RIP Gamers Club Unlocked.
Yeah, I never
Um,
got in. I never signed up for that, so I missed
yeah, I
out.
signed up last year, so mine expires late next year. So I'm just like, anytime I can get a discount on a particular title and it's physical, I'll get it that way. Um, Otherwise, it's going to be just limited editions for me, and I've always been pro digital. Although, there's claims to be like, who owns what, but I just less cartridges for me, better, honestly.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. At first I was like, I'm going to buy physical mostly for the Switch because then I can share the games with my son.
Mhm.
And if it's a multiplayer, if it's a single player game that we're unlikely to want to play at the same time, then I buy a physical copy. But everything else, I go digital. And I really, and my God, on PlayStation, digital is definitely the way to go because
Yeah.
we've got two PS4s in the house. And I don't know if you know about this, but you can share your games with a second PS4 and you can play at the
Yes.
same time. So like I bought Overwatch for PS4
Really?
and my son and I can play Overwatch together. He's on his PS4 downstairs and I'm on mine up here.
Huh.
Yeah, it's
I
a
didn't know
really
about that
ridiculous
second
deal.
part. I totally didn't know about that second part. That's awesome.
Yeah, it is. All right, so we talked about whether or not Nintendo's doing themselves any favors and they're shooting Cosmic Star Heroine in the foot. You wanted to talk about a game called Blade Strangers. Now, I don't
Yes.
know anything about this, so tell us about it.
Oh my goodness. So it's a 2D fighter, and it
Like a
doesn't take
side-scrolling
any
fighter or like a fighting game?
fighting game. It's
Oh,
a
okay.
fighting game, sorry, yes. I had to separate it from, like, Street Fighter, where it's like 3D, but they're 2D.
Mm-hmm.
They're side scrolling. So 2D fighting game, and the characters are some of them are based on Code of Princess characters. It's You have Solange, you have Lion Gate, Master T. I'm probably saying names that most people who I recommend Code of Princess for anybody. First off, but Studio Sizen Zen developed this game, and it's got like an indie mashup of all these other indie games together. Some of them are characters I've never heard of because I've never even heard of their games. But it's got me interested now into like looking into where these characters came from and what their stories are. And then you have 5 unlockable characters, which they already announced like way ahead of time, and I think that's what got people really hyped about the game at first. Was Shovel Knight being a big one, Gunvolt from Monster Striker, Curly and Quote, which Curly is already open from the beginning. Quote's the unlockable from Cave Story Plus or Cave Story,
Oh, okay. Thank you.
and Isaac from Binding of Isaac.
Wow. This
Yeah,
is
and
like the Smash Brothers of the indie uh,
yeah,
fame.
dude,
That's
it
very interesting.
is, and it's a good fighter. It's not a hard game to pick up. They th they treat it like, probably the easiest way to compare it, Blaze Blue. Blaze Blue does an amazing job, uh, d teaching beginners fighting games and how to make the connections with these combos. They teach you the ropes of, like, progression towards getting better with each character. They do a really good job, and I see a lot of that rooted into Blade Strangers as well. It plays smoothly. The story is a story. It's a fighting game. Don't expect a lot.
Yeah, of course not.
It revolves around Solange, the main character from Code of Princess. But then, every character has their own story as well. And then the unlockables continue the story from where Solange is left off.
Let me ask you a question about this. So, my my biggest gripe with most fighting games is they require a lot of manual dexterity. So, for instance, if I'm playing a Street Fighter game, I have to do the forward, down, halfway between the forward and the down, and then the whatever button in order to do the Shoryuken or whatever. And like I suck at that part of the game, but I'm pretty good at getting the right spacing between the characters, the tactical gameplay. I'm just bad at the crazy button inputs. So, Blade Strangers, does it play more like Pocket Rumble, where it's just one or two inputs, or does it play more like a Street Fighter game?
So I would say both, and not in the sense of you have to do any crazy button inputs in particular, but they keep the buttons, the controls to face buttons. You can use your LNR to like have your combined buttons, so like you can tap it to do like use up your meter because you get 3 bars, sort of like
Okay.
EX meters in comparison to Street Fighter and whatnot. Um, and then you have like this I'm not sure what exactly you would call it, but like you can kind of like continue a combo with it and it kind of like dashes into them but uses up a bar to do that to like continue your combo
Hmm.
and chain things. So that's pretty awesome. But in terms of the button layouts itself, it treats it as like, left and Y, forward and Y, up and Y. So uh, I'm almost inclined to say sort of like a smash style with
Right. Kind of
where
like Pocket Rumble.
yeah, Pocket Rumble, yeah, I guess so, yeah, with the 2 buttons, yeah, and the, left B, right A, sorta in that sense. Um, I don't believe out of all the characters that I did look at for movesets, didn't notice anything that required, like, quarter circles or zigzags or, like, holding back charges and whatnot.
Hmm.
Everything was very clean cut and, straightforward from all the characters I played, and I beat the game with all the characters and locked everybody within a couple hours at most.
Does it
Like, I
have
think you could
online?
do it has online, it has mission modes, there's plenty of skins to unlock. Uh, there's a whole training mode, so if you wanna, like, really break down frame by frame, like, hitboxes of all the characters and, like, what does the heaviest damage, that's all in there. Um,
What do you think of the
I
matchmaking?
Matchmaking lagged a little bit for me in terms of, like, finding a player, and I don't know if this constitutes as, like, people aren't playing online just yet because the game only came out yesterday, so maybe people are trying to unlock the characters and learn the
Hmm.
characters before they go online. But I got matched up a few times, like, once I got through the first 2 matches, I then got a couple more matches in and it was, like, pretty consistent. I don't know if I was playing with the same person or if it was different people across the US that I was playing with.
How is like the skill gap between you and your opponents most of the time? Because I was playing Pocket Rumble the day that it came out, and I got my tail handed to me every single time. And every time I've booted up that game and played against somebody who's not on my friends list, just a random person on the internet, they come in with the fury of like I killed their dog. Like they John Wick me. and it's
Yeah.
not pretty. And so like I've just stopped playing it unless I'm playing with somebody who I know, because I can't keep up.
The skill gap in that game is just insane. Even the story mode in that game is just unforgiving. Like I almost stopped until it like clicked with me with one of the characters. I found a character that I liked and I stuck with her because she was the only one that I think it was June. Like
Oh,
but
in you're talking about Pocket
In
Rumble?
Pocket
Yeah.
Rumble, yeah, like that game is too unforgiving. I had to stop. Um but yeah, online matchmaking, I like I never win online matches. I won all my online matches yesterday. I think I did like 5 or 6 matches,
Mhm.
but like the skill level was like, "Oh, okay, we're both learning this game." Like, clearly
That's
this
good.
person was trying to figure out the character. I was still trying to figure out my character. Like I've been playing mostly with Solange and Emiko. Emiko's like she's this girl that sits on her giant cat and the cat's doing all the battling. Kind of
Mhm.
like Ferratora in Mortal Kombat.
I don't
um
remember that character at all. Well, I haven't
in
played Mortal Kombat since Mortal Kombat 3.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I was in Mortal Kombat X. There's a character
Oh, okay.
Ferratora that like she sits on top of this big guy, and you're mostly the big guy in the match. But that's how she plays. So I was like, oh, big cat. I'm gonna totally play with this person.
Well, it's good to hear that the matchmaking takes skill into account, because it like
Yes.
that was my big gripe with Pocket Rumble is I was just playing against people who are way better than me, and there's no reason that I should be playing against them. They should be playing against people who are as good as them, and I should be playing
Yeah.
against people who suck like me. Because like I think it was Blizzard when they were talking about either Heroes of the Storm or Overwatch, they said our matchmaking is designed so that you should win half of your games. That's good matchmaking, and I think
Yeah.
that that's a pretty good rule to have.
Mm.
But Blade Strangers sounds really cool. How does Shovel Knight play? Is he fantastic? Because like I love Shovel Knight so much.
Dude, his specials are awesome. Can I spoil the specials for you real quick?
Hey, if you don't want to hear the specials, go ahead and mute it, and come back later. Go ahead.
His special meter is he uses the horn to on and it's like just an 11 hit combo on the
Oh,
person.
nice.
And then there's another special that he has this is it the spirit fish, the fish that spits out the
Oh
juice
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. I know what you're talking. The giant thing, right?
yeah, it comes across the screen in a giant wave. And if you do it, you build up your meter twice and do it. He comes back and hits you twice. It's like it does pretty good damage. His combos are on point, man. They're every character. I feel like this is a really well balanced game right now until
Hmm.
people start figuring out who's like top tier characters and you start breaking it into like competitive gaming at that
Yeah,
point.
yeah. Once the meta gets found, then it's all over.
Yeah.
How's it play? Or have you been playing on the Joy Cons? Yeah, you said you're mostly a portable guy.
Yes, so I've played almost every way except for my fighting stick. I've played with my Pro controller, that's great. I if you have the Xenoblade one, I recommend using this one because of the D-pad on this Pro controller in particular. And
Yeah, for those of you that
Joy-Con?
don't know, I'm sorry to interrupt, but for those of
Yeah,
you that
yeah.
don't know, the Xenoblade Pro controller was supposed to be updated so that it was less prone to have spurious inputs on the D-pad, which a lot of people complain about for the D-pad on the Pro controller. I never really run into it, but I don't play that kind of game very often. So go ahead with what you were saying with your controls.
No, yeah, Joy-Con. So I do have the Hori blue Joy-Con with the D-pad on it. I just got it recently.
Hmm.
Actually the same time I did end up getting the review code for Blade Strangers. I was like, "Oh my god, this is perfect timing." That worked well, but the D-pad on that Hori Joy-Con just felt it felt like not solid, like it felt too smooth. It felt
Okay.
best way to equate it is the Xbox 360 controller where it was just like the D-pad was in there in a whole circle and
Hmm.
wasn't like the D-pad itself wasn't sticking out. Kind of feels like that a little bit, but not entirely. And believe it or not, the Joy-Cons themselves. despite the fact that I am not the biggest fan of these separated. Uh-oh,
What's the matter? You're still good.
I have music playing.
Oh, I can't hear
Uh,
it.
that is very odd.
That's
But
okay. We'll survive.
oh, I know what happened. There we go. Monster Hunter started. My apologies. I had my Switch in there and the capture card went off. But yeah, the Joy Cons themselves actually have really solid button input for some of the characters that I play with. Gunvolt in particular, where he has like an air dash going in, and when I need to back up for like being able, because Gunvolt's like a weird character where he's the only one that you have to charge up your bar in order to gain meter in that game. He doesn't actually gain meter from fighting, I guess, because he's like he he's oh gosh, his Septima. It's a whole meta thing with like the actual story of Striker and what goes in. So I'm assuming
Okay.
that's the reason why that goes in. Gunvolt's like my favorite character. That's like the second biggest reason why I bought the game. Twice. Oh man, but yeah, no, yeah, the controllers, all of them, minus I would rank the Hori joypad controller or whatever they call it, the lowest out of the three controls that I played with.
Hmm.
And then I'm eventually going to mess with the fight stick at some point when I feel like I have a character that I'm gonna like rock with.
Awesome. Just a little bit contrast to you. I I adore the Joy-Con D-pad. I think it is one of the best D-pads I've ever used, which is a really weird thing. I was also surprised. I really love the PS4 D-pad. I think that has a really good D-pad. I hated the Xbox 360 one. I didn't like the one on the Wii U, and I'm not a fan of the one on the Pro Controller. But I think that the D-pad is really good on the Switch Joy-Cons. But that's just me.
Yeah, like it's worked for a good chunk of games, but then there's games that for some reason just don't click with me with the Joy Cons, and they're few and far in between. But I mean, the Shovel Knight Treasure Trove edition, when that came out on Switch, I for the life of me could not figure out how to play that game on the Joy-Con. So that's when I ended up buying a Pro controller. It was for that game. And mostly everything else I do play on my Joy-Cons. There's very few games that I do end up using having to revert exclusively to a Pro controller or now that Hori pad.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the Pro Controller is the controller that I always want to use when it's if I have to use the right stick for anything. If I have to use the right stick consistently. So, like in any shooter, I'm always using the Pro Controller. But everything else, I prefer the Joy-Cons. And I actually really like the sticks on the Joy-Cons for certain games because they have such a short throw to them that you can change direction really, really fast. In fact, my son and I completed all of Shovel Knight using the Joy-Cons.
Really?
Yeah, and we were using the sticks, not the D-pad.
Huh.
And I thought it was really well done.
That is an achievement.
Yeah, well, especially because at the time he was 8 and easy to be frustrated. So I kind of had to carry him just a little bit, although he held his own for an 8-year-old. So let's talk about a game that you actually brought up before, and that's a Mutant Mudds collection. I've been playing that again recently, and if you didn't know what this is a game that has been on a lot of platforms. I don't know if it was on the Wii U or not. I believe it was. It was on 3DS. It was on your cell phone. You could play it in so many different places. And it's a side-scrolling platformer where you can shoot and you can hover. And you got to shoot at these little mud ball guys and jump around in a very, very small stage and collect all of the, I'll say, diamonds in the stage in order to unlock the next stage or whatever. And the thing that I like most about this game, and the reason I'm really happy that I have it on my Switch. First off, there's 3 games there basically, because it's a collection. But the one that I'm playing the most is just regular old Mutant Muds, and it is perfect for those moments where you're like, I got 5 minutes. Let's sit down and do one stage of Mutant Muds. You can easily get a stage done in 5 minutes, and it might not be something that I'm like, okay, I'm going to sit down for 45 minutes and play Mutant Muds. It's always something I'm like I'll play one or two stages and I'll be like, all right, I'm done, and I'll come back to it some other time. And I'm slowly working my way through the game, but I'm having a lot of fun with it. Have you played it?
Oh yeah, no, I oh man, dude, that just gave me a little bit of PTSD right I kid, but yeah, no, I beat the first Mutant Muds. I had started Super Challenge and I was just like, okay, this is getting too much. You and I have clearly had separate experiences, two different experiences. I have spent 45 minutes on a single stage, I believe, almost the final stage
Well,
on the
I'm early in it.
okay. Get ready though. Get an extra pair of Joy Cons because you might be losing some.
Oh boy.
Yeah, no, the game gets very punishing, but it's never punishing to where it's the game's fault. It is punishing, and it's like, okay, I failed because I did this jump onto this platform wrong, or I didn't shoot this particular enemy. I didn't double jump with the jetpack in at the right height to get to this platform. Like you're learning as you're failing. It encourages failing when you're playing this game for sure. So patience
Hmm.
is key.
Yeah, it is not the kind of
Lots of
game
it.
where you want to rush through. You want to take your time. Like I don't think that there's a timer on it, is there?
There's a I think there
You don't
I
run out of time, you just get more
You don't
points.
run out of time. You get a timer as far as, like, the when you beat a level, if I recall
Oh,
correctly.
okay. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, there you
it's
go.
counting up, not down.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
so like
For,
I
like,
don't care
speedrun
about that. Like
purposes.
that doesn't bother me at all.
No.
I don't care if I beat it fast enough. I don't care what my points are. I just want to try and get all of the things. And so you're very, very slowly and methodically going through a stage, but the stages are really, really small. So they don't take a long time unless you keep dying over and over, which is definitely something that has happened to me. And I just shut the game off and come back to it later. But I've had a lot of fun with it, and I would definitely recommend that people check it out. And
Yeah.
Jules Watson, he's the guy that developed the game. He was been on the show before, and I've got an interview with him that you can check out on my YouTube channel, or you can go. You can just go to runjumpstomp.com and click on guests, and you can find Jules, and you can hear his interview where he talked about all the games that he's done. He's done some of my favorite retro style games that are not actually old games. Like, if you had to pick one Atui game, Joe, which one would you pick to
I mean,
play?
I would have to say if you are a Metroid fan,
Yes. Yeah.
Zeo Drifter.
Oh, I
Zeo
love that
Drifter,
game.
although very you can beat it in about 5, 6 hours. You can
Mm-hmm.
probably do it on, like, a weekend session. Um, I had some qualms with the game, nothing too crazy, but it is definitely the Metroid of all the Atui games so far. I would highly recommend it.
Yeah. My only
It's
problem with the
balancing.
game was the repetitive boss. Uh,
Yes, that was my
yeah.
same qualm, yeah.
But I still had so much. I had enough fun that I beat that game twice. And I
There you go.
never ever go back and play a game once I've beat it. Once I've beat a game, it just sits there and I never look at it again for the most part.
And it's funny too, you mentioned, whether, Mutant Mudds, was on Wii U. That, Zeo Drifter, and Super Challenge were all cross-play titles between
Oh, that's
3DS
right. That's right. If
and
you
Wii
owned it
U.
on one, you had it on the other.
Yeah, you got a code in your email
Mm-hmm.
to to put into the Wii U, and you got it for free. Like,
Yeah.
that was unheard of.
Yeah. Atui has always been a big supporter of Nintendo stuff. In fact, I think their games are all Nintendo exclusive, except for Totes the Goat, I think is on. Well, I think some of their games are also on iOS, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, Mutant Muds, both games, Zeo Drifter, those you can find on other consoles, at least Vita,
Oh, okay.
and I feel like PS4 for sure. Steam has Zeo Drifter and I believe Mutant Muds and all that stuff. But yeah, I don't think there's anything else that is outside of the DS, 3DS, and mobile lineup that I can think of. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mutant Muds is probably the biggest one that went on everything.
Well, Joe, you are awesome for coming on the show. I really enjoyed
Thank
our
you.
talk, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Where can people find your stuff? Give them a reminder where they can go find Joe after work.
Yeah, so joeafterwork.com and YouTube and twitch.tv/joeafterwork. I try to make it as easy as possible, and Twitter as well. Same thing, Joe Afterwork.
Awesome. Go follow his stuff because he does good stuff. And whenever the first time, I'm gonna tell a story real quick before we
Go
get out
for
of
it.
here. I was watching some other streamer, I can't remember who it was, and they hosted you. And you do this ridiculous thing when you get like a host or something with all these crazy Nintendo memes, like Reggie, and you fight Reggie and stuff. I don't know that I ever laughed so hard in my life as watching you fight Reggie on your stream. It was one of the funniest things. So make sure you check out his stuff because like that stuff is really weird, but it's funny.
You gotta make it a good time, you know?
That's right. All right. Thanks, man. I'll see you later.
Thank you.
Bye.